Stalin died in 1953 and was succeeded by Khrushchev. He resigned in '64 and was succeeded by Brezhnev, who ruled till death in 1982. Now his successor, Yuri Andropov, was an old man and died very quickly, just 2 years later. And although Andropov wanted Gorbachev to succeed him, the committee members chose Konstantin Chernenko. And Konstantin was actually a terminally ill man. He spent most of his time in hospital and died the next year. Now path was clear and Gorbachev was elected the ruler in 1985. You may not know this, but out of all these seven people, Gorbachev was the only leader of the Soviet Union who was actually born in the Soviet Union. The rest were all born in Imperial Russia. Now, Gorbachev realized that the USSR was in a bad shape and needed to reform in order to survive. He realized a few things. Despite spending so much weapons and money, the USSR was still lagging behind the US in the arms race. The war in Afghanistan had become the USSR's Vietnam. It was unwinnable militarily. Now, in case you guys don't know, because it's not in syllabus, to oversimplify, the Soviets had invaded Afghanistan because they were thinking that just like Eastern Europe, we can, easily bring this country under our control and then put a government loyal to us. But that didn't really happen because the communist government of Afghanistan wasn't exactly a popular one. There was lots of insurgency going on against the government itself. And when this happened, the United States and its allies actually started supporting these insurgents in terms of giving them money and even religious indoctrination and weapons. And they were known as the Mujahideen, which is the word used for holy warriors or people who are working for a noble cause in Islam. And the war had basically become Soviet Union's Vietnam because the guerrilla mujahideen were inflicting heavy losses on the Soviets, and they would just go in the areas where central authority was limited. And there wasn't much the Soviets could do about it. So Gorbachev just concluded that we can't win this war militarily. We should leave this war. He also realized that although communism was supposed to help common people, capitalist West still had a better standard of living when it came to commoners, and many Soviet citizens weren't even loyal to the state at all. Furthermore, Soviet Union was spending a lot of money and resources on propping up the communist regimes of Eastern Europe. This was part of the Brezhnev doctrine that if Eastern Europe doesn't want to be communist, then we will use our and Warsaw Pact troops and our weapons to force them to stay communist. This was taking a strain on the USSR's budget now, and Gorbachev realized it. So he began a series of reforms, hoping to help kickstart the USSR. He did the perestroika, which was the restructuring. He allowed market forces, and for the first time in 60 years, it was actually legal for you to buy and sell stuff for profit in the USSR. Then he introduced glasnost, which was basically transparency. He wanted open debate on government policies and he wanted honest discussions on, what the government was doing. Is it really good? And should the people agree with it? If they have concerns, then what are they? All that. He also reduced military spending because in order to spend more on people, you have to spend less on the military. And because of this, the Red Army shrank for the first time in the USSR's history. For the first time, it shrank because he decreased their budget. In terms of foreign policy, Gorbachev also made reforms. He told communist dictators of Eastern Europe that from now onwards, Red Army won't send its tanks or troops to support them anymore. They must reform and listen to their own people. He also, removed troops from Afghanistan in 1989, and he wanted to improve relations with the world because he saw the armed race and Cold War as futile, useless. The USSR wasn't really in a position to win, and he knew that. Now, the thing is, his reforms didn't really work out the way he had intended. Even though, obviously, his reforms were supposed to, help kickstart the Soviet Union, allowing transparency and openness actually showed the common Soviet people just how badly their country was being mismanaged. Okay, so many countries were impacted from the Second World War, and many of them were doing well now, but Soviet Union wasn't. There was a whole story of cover-ups and mismanagements. One good story of cover-ups, it's not in the syllabus, but it's still common, is the Chernobyl disaster. So when it first happened, people were told that, yeah, it's a disaster, leak happened, don't worry. But it was actually very severe. And because not proper, they didn't take proper action to cover up the damage, a lot of people got, sick from those radiations. That's just one part. There was a lot of mismanagement and cover-ups and corruption in the Soviet Union. And when the public came to know this, it actually ended up demoralizing them and eventually led to the Soviet Union's collapse itself. But how exactly did the Soviet Union collapse? How did a superpower vanish from world map? This is something we will be discussing in the upcoming videos. For now, I would like to thank you for watching.